Live right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are live and direct right now with episode 61 of MMA Reloaded Raw Talk. I hope you're all well and thanks for joining me wherever you're joining me from. Joining me, folks, on the other side of the screen is the man, the face of the Fisticuffs podcast, Mr. Dan Lester.
Thank you very much, my
friend. Dan, bro, like we were talking about before we kicked off the live is mutual respect and the crossover. I felt like it was a great fit, man. So thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure, mate. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
So bro, I know like in your in studio podcast, in your in studio interviews, you like to sort of really get to know the people on your panel, right? And then so for yourself, mate, how long have you been into martial arts and combat sports, and when did the podcast start for you?
So there's quite a few bits with this. So regards to MMA as a whole, I never really knew about it. I kind of knew it existed as just cage fighting in the crudest form. And my first anything relating to it session was it's called Fighting Fear, basically like a boxer-sized but MMA style session at an MMA gym near me. And that was when the Ice Bucket Challenge was a thing. So 2014, so about 7 years ago, around about. Mm-hmm. So bought a trial session at a gym local to me. Did that. Did the fitness classes. Enjoyed it for a while, on and off, picking up a bit more. Then got the gear. Did a couple of MMA sessions. On and off, no real consistency with it until maybe say 2015, 2016 properly. And then really took my training seriously from 2017, 2018 onwards. In regards to the podcast, that's always been a bit of a, the backseat driver, the armchair quarterback kind of energy of, oh, you just sit there and talk. It's so easy. Anyone could do it. And I never really gave more thought than that. And then first lockdown sort of hit, and I thought, what do I need to actually do it? And most of it was just giving it a go and seeing what happened. And episodes later, here we are. Training podcast is just over a year now.
Okay, so it's been so you've done a lot, bro, in a really short time, man. And I would say, but 7 years back, that's a lot of development physically as well for you, mate. So no, I commend that. And when they say that, when I see people just shoot off podcasts out of thin air without really expressing any passion for the sport or whatever their podcast is about, it kind of gets under my nerves, if you know what I mean. Because bro, you never really anyone can grab a mic and a camera and shoot their mouth off, but if you really have a passion for what you do and what you talk and what you speak about, then it helps you a whole hell of a lot.
There's a lot to it. There's a lot to really take in from this. And one thing I want to really make clear is podcasting is an art. When I say an art, I mean it's open to interpretation. There's not a default better or worse, good, bad, yes, no. It's what you want to do it and the way you want to make it, that authentic picture in the way you see it. You see it in your head how you want it to look, and you try and make that as aligned in what you're making there as possible. So whether it's me, you, Eric, so whoever else is doing a podcast, they've got to be to your authenticity to the T. Whether it comes out fantastically or not is another conversation, and ultimately it's down to interpretation. But the thing that gets me the most, like you're saying there, is inauthentic people who just try and get on names, try and get them to slip up, try and reshare it for clicks, try and make it a money thing. And I'll tell you for nothing, it ain't a money thing, especially not early days. Like, people will see my kit, they'll see my podcast, they'll think, oh, he's doing all right from that. It's still early days. It's still early days. Profit hasn't come yet. They're not in a rush for it to. It's a natural, organic thing. And people who try and chase things, ask for money from small businesses early on, without any real, like, I don't know, excuse me, without any real like backing or any way of justifying asking for that amount. It's a very, you see through it. It's a very inauthentic thing. Without going too in depth in that side of things, it's just purely down to your preference, how you want to deliver that information. Like the way I explain this a lot, when people ask about me supporting competitors in inverted commas, like my friends who are PTs at the gym as well as I am, my friends who are running podcasts. So why would you promote competitors? And the answer is, I use my radio station analogy. If everyone was driving and they only had one radio station, which was me, I would have the monopoly, 100% of the audience. But how many of those people are listening because they want to, or are they listening because they've got no other option? So say if you had 4 other radio stations there, and say I only got literally a 20% share of that audience, I know they weren't forced to, but they chose me. And I know everyone who's listening wants to listen. My fan base and my friends and everything else are purely people who want to listen to me. And the more inverted commas saturated the market gets, the better it is.
That's it.
More authentic people are going to get sieved out, and they're going to be the ones listening. It's not just people who are just trying to be nosy to see what's about. It's not people who just feel obligated to. It's people who want to be there. Like, you know what it's like. Listening to a podcast is almost a bit of a commitment. It's a bit, an hour or two out of your day. It's however many times a week. It's following things, sticking with it. Albeit you want to, but it's a commitment. So to invest that time in someone, to listen to what they have to say, I take it very personally. People like my podcast. I think it's more of a, I can't remember who was saying this, but a lot of YouTubers who have their short form brand and a long form podcast take more pride knowing that if they're appreciated in the long form, that's the more sincere version of them. That's not the polished social media version. That's the more raw, more uncut, more live, direct version. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. No, I mean, like you said, you know, everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own way of doing their thing, and you know, that's the way. That's why I think, you know, there's like a close number of podcasters like us who have mutual respect for each other, because we know how hard of a graft it is to actually start one in the first place, and then to deliver it and keep going with it, just the consistency of it. We know how hard it is, so I think that's why a lot of us have mutual respect for each other as you know, as fellow podcasters, if you will, you know. But and I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head. You know, it's all about when somebody likes your stuff and somebody likes your podcast, or even somebody likes my post on Instagram. Yeah, that means a world to me, man, because it shows that, you know, I'm doing something right. So
It's that confirmation, really, isn't it? That's where a lot of people, I feel, chase social media likes and follows for that admiration, that acknowledgement, that I feel valued, I feel acknowledged, I feel heard. And this is where I feel there's uplift in the amount of podcasts, the amount of people producing content. It's not to deliver a message, it's to be heard. That not any of us are saying this is new, exclusive, this is the first time ever. This is my take on it. Because put it this way, when the big event's going on, when someone asks for your opinion on it, it's almost like, wow, they care enough about what I have to say to, you know, ask about it.
Yeah.
Which there's enough professional analysts out there, there's people who are paid to do that. So for them to go out of their way to find out what we think about these things, you feel a bit acknowledged, you feel respected. And the same sort of thing with the people who are the haters who leave like shitty comments. They don't necessarily want to upset the person as a standalone thing. They want to be backed. They want people to, they want to say what they think everyone else is thinking, and so on and so forth. They want to have that crowd mentality, that kind of mob mentality. See what I'm saying? You're part of a group being followed, you're being respected, a public speaker admiration. Like, that's where a lot of people, I feel, jump on this thing. Like, me personally, like, I'm not going to pretend it's not a relevant thing. That my ego doesn't get a little bit of a buzz when my numbers go up, when a podcast gets a reaction. It's a very natural thing that something you care about, when it does well, you appreciate that. You want that to keep going. You want to chase that high almost.
Yeah.
But it's then being ground to realize, is it your ego chasing that, or is it your integrity for the business and the brand? And again, it's a very it's a knife edge of morality, but ultimately one is definitely helps the other. Like my insecurity when someone else does well pricks me up a little bit. I'm not going to pretend I don't get a bit jealous when someone does something bigger in the space, someone I had more of a following than does better than me. It pricks me up a little bit, and it's not a bad thing. It gives me that competitive drive to, okay, let's rethink this. Let's not get complacent there. You see what I'm saying? It's that line you've got to draw somewhere.
No, yeah, 100%. Bro, like I think, MMA and martial arts, combat sports, it goes hand in hand really with starting a podcast, because that takes as much of a commitment as starting one up does, and I think I was always raised to really understand that, combat sports really derives from the tradition and the honor of what martial arts is. So I thought that, starting a podcast, I will put as much commitment into doing one, and it is to, what fighters do to really hone their craft. I thought, in my opinion, that was it. It goes hand in hand in terms of commitment, effort, and just pure hard work. And that's the only reason why I did this, because I wanted to really prove that, at the end of the day, what people think and the stereotype that people really associated this sport with and this industry with and what we do was not true. Do you know what I mean? So like you said, everyone has their own reasons for doing what they do and things like that. And that was just what I thought at the time.
But this is something you touched on there, which I really like, where comparing the two, building the martial arts, building the skill, building this, and also building the brand with the same mindset. Because this is a very, very important premise that people miss out a lot of and don't appreciate. Is everyone can plant a seed, but can you look after the plant? Because planting the seed is easy. You just put it in the pot, put it in the soil, and leave it. But can you look after it? Can you go back consistently to make sure it's okay? Can you maintain these things? Everyone can start a Duolingo thing. You can start a podcast, read a book, all these different things. But can you maintain that? This is what I touched on off the camera off the back about showing respect for what you've been doing with your full-time work and everything else, is you maintaining your lifestyle by working for it. You have to put in the time to keep where you are. And that's just maintenance. That's not even improving. That's just maintaining. And like with the podcast, like doing the training, like doing everything else, it's not easy. Like the conversation itself right now, this is the best bit of it. This is the fun bit of having the actual conversation. But what people don't appreciate is the guests you book, you get left on red, the no-shows, when it comes on, you don't get the reception. Say you have internet problems, say you're struggling to get an audience, say you've got the content, it's not getting respected, you're not getting the clips out. There's loads of bits and bobs going on. Technical problems, equipment, overheads, costs, and so on and so forth. Branding, promotion, production, everything. Expansion, plans, the content you're even talking about. There's so much going on. And to retain not even just the actual brand itself, but also the standards you're setting yourself and also excel from that. Think about running on a treadmill. Say you're doing the entire thing at like a 7K an hour pace.
Yeah.
And then you've got to start doing the same distance, but now you're going up a K every single like lap or so. You don't slow down with it. You keep it going, but you have to keep that standard and keep topping it up as well as everything else. So, and also the quality has to go up. So how are you going to run faster and feel better and do everything else consistently? And the answer is what? Training, preparation, learning to recover. And the same way in the martial arts, the MMA, like it's not an overnight thing. Like my biggest achievement in this sport is starting as a fucking like, I don't know how to swear or not, but anyway, starting as just an absolute melt. Nothing came natural, not athletic, not strong, not fast, not in shape, none of these things. These things took loads of time for me to even get a competent level. And yeah, things are picking up now. Yeah, obviously it's a spectrum, but I'm a lot better than I was. Yeah. But I put that all down to the hard work, and that's where my real sense of achievement is with this. And this is where this point still stands of, it's not just getting started, it's maintaining it, it's growing. Because when we talk about maintaining things and talk about the cliches of just hard work is one thing. That's effort. But effort without direction is just running into a wall over and over again, but harder and faster. You're not going anywhere or getting any better. You're just going in the same place. You see what I'm saying? And it takes this long asking questions, failing again, failing better. So it's not just going to the motion, thinking better shape. I talk about this.
Sorry, Dan.
I had this conversation in MMA this evening. You'll go to a lot of gym, but you'll keep training. Can you hear me?
It just cut out just a little bit just before, bro.
Whereabouts did I cut out? Whereabouts did you just leave me on?
So I left you on. You were talking about training, and after the part about the treadmill metaphor.
Oh, that was quite earlier. Fair enough. So the idea being that, say your pace you're working at, albeit from a physical point of view, say you're running at a certain pace, and then to maintain that is to keep that pace. But if you're running for, say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, fatigue's going to set in. But that's maintaining it. Going faster and then improving further and further, that isn't getting any easier, but it's getting harder, but you've got to maintain that. So if you start slowing down, then what? So that's about quality slacking. And then I start touching on things about just putting in effort is one thing, but without guidance, the effort doesn't go anywhere. Say if you make really crude thumbnails, say if the quality of the audio is dog shit, doing more of that more often isn't better. It's just more of it. You see what I'm saying? That's where hard work and guidance are two different things. And this is what I was saying just now before I realised I cut out, was in the MMA class I've just done, we're talking about how a lot of gyms will just train harder. They'll have the same lessons, but they'll be in better shape and they'll round go a bit better because they're in better shape. They're slightly adjusting, but they haven't really improved, just in better shape and create this false economy that you're improving. How do you feel that? I'm not sure the signal is okay.
It just cut out. Yeah. We're okay now.
Yeah. Sorry, the connection's a bit intermittent. It should be a bit clearer now where I'm going into. So just to that anyway, it's hard work without direction. It can just get you into a brick wall faster. Whereas changing direction, you can get around that wall. You can go to the target destination a lot quicker. That's just what I'm saying.
No, that's true, man. It's true. Right, you know, one thing I always ask, you know, whoever I'm doing a podcast with is you know what their thoughts and their opinions about the commitment and effort that it takes to actually do what they do. And you know, one thing that you know really stuck with me is when someone actually told me that if you don't have the experience of being in the shoes of a fighter, you won't know what they go through mentally and what they go through physically. So I was thinking, you know, that's why I started training, is because I wanted to go through what they go through, and I wanted to feel what they feel, and I put that feeling, I put that reality into my shows every time. Because I want to because you know, something that's stuck in my head for the past 2-3 years. And that's the fact that if I'm not in the fight, if I'm not in that mentality of what a fighter goes through, then how the fuck am I supposed to know? Yeah. So you know, bro, like that's what you said. It takes that. It's all about the commitment, and like you said, without hard work, there's no direction. Yeah. So bro, like with that, and having said that, what was your first exposure to maybe watching mixed martial arts and MMA combat sports? Was it something that just stumbled across to you? Or?
So I kind of got off your track with that. So initially you were saying about the empathy of going through the trenches to then appreciate what you're asking. But the question you just asked there is, am I right in saying it's about my first, like, watching it and being around it? How do you mean? Sorry, I've sort of missed that a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly right.
Okay, fine, making sure I was pulled up now so I could hear you a bit better. Hopefully it doesn't cut out too badly. How's the signal here? Is that right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect.
Let me get the light on as well. You see me now?
Yeah.
There we are, pretty as fine. regards to the empathy side of things, one thing to always bear in mind from everyone involved at any stage, I don't know what anyone else feels about anything ever to the nth degree. If I have a can of Coke in my hand and I give it to you, I can't guarantee it'll feel the same to you. I don't know how strong you are. I don't know how your wrist is. I don't know what injuries you've got. And that's just a can of Coke.
Mm.
A fight and perceptions, emotions, backgrounds, ethics, ethos, pressures, all these things are so many variables. To say you know what they're going through because you've had a similar experience isn't true. And that insincerity is where people get rubbed up the wrong way, I feel. And more so because every single fight I felt differently at different stages. And to say I know how I feel for my next one, that wouldn't be true because I'm always developing, always growing, and other things are changing. There's so many variables. But regards to watching it, I mean, since getting into the sport, my first experiences were like amateur shows, so watching them live, which was always quite cool.
Yeah.
And then I think went to the odd UFC, the odd Cage Warriors, and just appreciate it from a further experience. But where I really went short at the start was wanting to be ready before I was ready for the wrong reasons, to impress my friends. I start training at some MMA gym. Oh, I'm going to be this, I'm going to do that. And then they start asking the questions of, when are you going to fight? Are you going to fight soon? And then I'm saying, oh, hopefully soon. I'll ask my coach. Nowhere near ready, but because I want to impress them for my ego, for my admiration, all the rest of it, I'm pushing myself further than I need to, than I'm able to, for the wrong reasons entirely. See what I'm saying?
So it was about really now changing that mindset to just doing it for yourself in the end, right?
Less than that, like, you got to appreciate it's my health on the line in there. If I'm going in there to show off and to look in a certain way, that's one thing. You see it in all walks of life. But this isn't a joke. This isn't a game. And if I go in to try and impress my friends and I take a bad knockout or I get a bad sub that's, been on a bit too quick, that could be my life. That could be a devastating injury. That could be a lot of things. And for the sake of the ego, it's not worth it. Yes, obviously there's a line where you'll never be truly ready. There's always be something. But the principle being, if I'm not even in the position to even keep myself safe to a certain standard, who's that for? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, would you agree then that unless you actually unless someone's actually stepped into that shoe of what a fighter or a combat sports athlete goes through, or a martial artist goes through, physically and mentally, do you agree with that? That if you don't experience that, you won't really know, that you won't really adopt that mindset yourself.
So there's 2 points to that question you just asked there. And I'll ask you one thing which will give you my perfect answer.
Yeah.
Why do you ask questions?
Is that
to find out answers. To find out answers to find out.
Yeah.
Why would you already need to know the answers to ask a question? So for people saying you have to have this level of experience before you ask the things, why? Why? Who's asking the questions? Why would you want, like, I don't know, Chael Sonnen asking questions of so-and-so? Why would you want Dustin Poirier interviewing, like, Dan Hooker? What's the point in that? You don't need that level of experience. Fighters fight, journalists journal, and the rest of it. It's sort of, you have your role. Like, Ariel Helwani, the most famous journalist in the sport, he's not at a fight. Why would he? Well, everyone listens to what he says. Everyone believes what he says. Everyone respects what he says. The where I get pissed off with this is people taking that to the nth degree of asking, like, casual questions, like, what's your favorite move? Are you going to knock him out? Are you going to win? It's like stupid stuff. It's just tone deaf. But to ask a question of how do you deal with the nerves? I could imagine I would be nervous in your situation. I wouldn't know what to do. How would you do this? A lot of my podcast, outside of the usual, is more just asking questions I would ask them in the gym. I had Nathaniel Wood on. I asked him a question I had about anxiety about my fight. Things like that. It's just like, why would you not use your platform to ask a question you give a shit about? My entire podcast is very selfish. It's me speaking to people I care about things I care about. If you want to listen to it, happy days, join along. As far as I'm concerned, I've seen your fight. I think you're sick. I'll pick your brains about something. And that sincere interest in having them on, outside of just clickbaiting people, I think people appreciate that. I think they appreciate someone who actually wants to talk to them as a person and not just a name and a number and so on and so forth. That's why my guests have been quite mixed, from amateurs, professionals, champions, beginners, and all sorts of things, because it's the person I care about. It's not obviously the status, the likes, the numbers, they all add up as well, but you can't get hung up on that, you know what I mean?
You know, and you know, I'm right there with you, man. Because bro, like, if you have that versatility and you have that variety, and I know everyone has their own you know, style and guests that they want to have on, you know, theme that they want to go by and things like that. But if you have that versatility and have that variety of people on, you know, and you have people who have stepped in and who haven't, it really gives you that the range, if you know what I mean. It gives you that different attitude, gives you those different answers, those different opinions. You got you know, people looking at some questions favorably and people looking at it some adversely. And you know, you compare talking to Nathaniel Wood to talking to, say, Ariel Helwani. You know, some questions are going to be you know, questions, if you ask them the same question, going to be answered different. You know what I
One
mean?
thing to appreciate as well is, like, take us, for example.
Yeah.
We live in different places, different families, different backgrounds, completely different people, but we have a similar interest. The Venn diagram, we overlap on MMA. So we could talk for all day on that one thing we have in common. Obviously, there'd be more things, but the same idea is that bit of connection. The more levels of connection you've got, the more you can expand these conversations. Like, I don't know how your day's been, but I said, what about that weirdo on the tube who gave you that weird look? Like, you know who that was. You know the way he was dressed. You know that person. You can relate to that. Similar with fighters, talking about fighters, you can talk about very bespoke things like fight show hanging around, how long certain things are, people asking stupid questions, ticket sales and weight cut week, things like that. It's a very, like, you're normally in it to appreciate that inconvenience of it. Your friends think, oh, you're not fighting till Saturday. I've asked you on the Tuesday. That's no problem. Like, logistically, it's not. Mentally, for me, I'm knackered. I'm depleted. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to drive over to you. I don't want to talk to you. I want to crack on what I'm doing. I've got a fight to prepare for. Leave me alone. You should have sorted it out weeks ago. Things like that. They don't get it. But the more you are involved in it, the more you're direct with it, the more you can appreciate that. Again, that Venn diagram, the overlap. And the more of an overlap you've got, it becomes full eclipse and you're the same person. But obviously, you'll never be the same person. But you got extra layer of connection and empathy and understanding makes that conversation more sincere, more genuine. Us having this conversation now as podcaster and podcaster, we've got that level of empathy, like I spoke about a minute ago, where it was the things people don't see, the guests that no show, the internet connection issues, the equipment issues, the production, promotion, the numbers don't reflect the quality of the content, things like that. People don't appreciate that from the outside because they're not in that position. They don't need to care about it, but we're in their space. We do these things and we get these problems. You know what I mean?
And you know, that's just things that people don't really understand. Yeah, and this is what really annoys me, because you know, people don't understand that even though, all right, cool, say you're sponsoring Almighty Fight Championships, or say you're sponsoring you know, this and that, or say you're doing an in-studio podcast, you know, that doesn't mean that, you know, shit, you're verified on social, and you know, you got 2.3 million followers and all this shit. It doesn't mean that at all. Yeah, it just means one step, yeah, at a time, and that's how you're good. You know, it means when we talk about you know, amateurs, and we talk about young guys in there coming up in the sport, and you talk about, you have these guys on the show. You know, why do you do that? Why do you have those types of guests? You know, people don't know them. They don't know who they are. Well, why
I know it's rhetorical, but here's the point with that, why I want to also emphasize this.
Yeah.
So say you're preparing for your first amateur fight and you're speaking to UFC guys, pros, you think, wow, they're very flippant with, oh, it doesn't matter, just have fun, do this, do that, and the other. You think, okay, cool, but it's so much further removed from me. I can't relate to that. This for me is such a huge thing, but their first fight for them is like so down here. An amateur who just had their first fight, they've got the most, I don't know, inline emotions of how big that event is for them. People have like one charity fight and they think their fight is the rest of their lives. And they're sincere, they mean what they say, they're past lie detector, they believe it. But this is the point. That genuine, that place it comes from, like, I think I pride myself in my PTs is that level of empathy that I pride myself on. I get that sometimes it's a slog. I get sometimes you won't get it straight away. I get it's a ball at getting it. I get it's anxiety inducing meeting a new client, a new trainer, and so on and so forth. I get feeling more tired than you think you should have been and being guilty about that and all this stuff. And not everyone's got that. Not everyone has the patience for it. Like most of my patience isn't from any sort of like monk-like tolerance of things. It's empathy. It's, oh, I can appreciate where you might be coming from. But listen to that wording. I appreciate where you might be coming from. It's not I know how you feel, because I don't know how you feel. I don't know how you feel now. I don't know how you're feeling now. I don't know if you're hungry, you're tired, you've been up all day, you're buzzing, you're wide awake, you're depressed, you're bored. I don't know what's going on in your world. So for me to say no is a lie. It's an outright lie to your face. But I might know how you might feel. Is I can empathize that, you know, it's been a long day, you've been doing this, you might have a bit of a caffeine spike now because we're on a live thing, but I don't know. I'm assuming, I'm guessing. And that's the reality of it. As long as you have that transparency, you can only go so far wrong. Like, and it's an old quote, I don't think who says it, but if you can't remember, you don't have to remember anything if you tell the truth. Because it's so true, because you don't have to lie, you don't have to cover anything up. If that's what you think, that's what you feel, that's the truth. Do you know, do you not? That's it.
100%. And I don't think people really understand that, you know, especially with, bro, I always say that it doesn't matter
keep driving. I don't cut out too far. Otherwise, I'm going to stay here all night in a random car. But keep talking. Hopefully, I don't cut out too much.
No, it's cool. I always say that, it doesn't matter what you do, what sport you're in, or, if you're doing broadcast journalism, it doesn't matter what you're doing it in, as long as as long as you give it all, for me, bro, when I first heard about, or when I first started watching regional MMA in the UK, and I was dumbfounded. I was like, holy shit, why don't people talk to these guys more? Because I felt that they deserve a lot more respect, or just as much respect as professionals do. And for me, that was really a big thing. If I see someone giving it their all and going balls in, into that cage, or even just stepping in the fence, I would definitely try and get a chat with him. And do you feel the same way, Dan, where you feel that getting a chat with them, you get such a down to earth and humble mentality from them, reciprocate?
You get a mix. So you get some amateurs who are sincerely grateful. They didn't even expect this to be even a conversation until maybe maybe not even on the radar, full stop. And they think, wow, you're another being who's just given me this. You're so charitable, this, that, and the other. Then you get the entitled ones who are like, oh, because I've had like 3 fights against some shit beginners, and now I'm 3-0. The world owes me everything, and like, oh, you should have had me on sooner, bro. Let's do this. Oh, give me free stuff, sponsor me. I was like, no. The arrogance and this and that sort of thing takes away everything that this platform is for. My ethos with my guests and everything else is giving them a platform is a very holier than thou kind of way of talking about it. I'm building a platform. They're helping me build a platform, which then can help raise everyone up. I don't have a platform without episodes, without followers, without the guests, and so on and so forth. Every element is as important as the other. A house of cards, every single card is important. Without it, the structure falls. You see what I'm saying? And having any kind of priority in this, it's when you go short, you think, oh, I'm better than this, or I don't need them. It's not the point. It really isn't the point. And ultimately, I want a conversation with someone I can relate to in some way, shape, or form. who I'm interested in. I care about what they're doing. I want to find out how they're dealing with it. Because back to the point earlier about speaking to someone closer to where you're at, is their emotions are a lot fresher. They're dealt with it there and then. Like, how do you deal with that pre-fight nerves? When you walk in the cage, what do you think? If they've just fought, obviously, like, give them a second to get their breath back, they'll give you a more accurate answer. If you ask me, what do I think, like, before my second fight, my third fight, my fourth fight, I can't really remember. It's kind of happened. You just heard your music, you had your walk, you got in there, door shut, crack on, now what? Whereas if you just had it, you think, oh shit, I remember feeling this, I remember feeling that. Obviously, if there's a prompt or two, you remember it. But you see my point?
Yeah.
It's that level of, I don't know, authenticity, the freshness, the relevance, and the recency, all these things. I lost track of the question, but
yeah, that's what exactly it. No, that was exactly it. I think we just got lost in the conversation there. But you know, Dan, now you're so right, bro. And I honestly just have that much respect for them. You know, for anyone really who steps in like that. I don't care if you're UK regional or you know, whatever. If you stepped in, yeah, and you've taken the time out to come and do a show, come and do an interview, you know, and you've just been through a fight. Yeah, like I spoke to someone recently who just competed at Bellator, and he's only 21. Yeah, and his eye was fucked, like it was closed. Yeah, when I was speaking to him, right? But he was all smiles and all happy because he got the win at 20 years old, and you know, it was a big spotlight, and you know, if that's what really that's what really gratifies what I do. It is because you know, just seeing the look on the guy's face and having that chance to get into their mind and see what they're feeling after that. Because like you said, it's a more accurate answer. So you're getting exactly what's going through their mind at the time.
On top of that, one thing you've touched on there, almost indirectly, is personifying the fighters. If you see some random guy get knocked out, you think, oh, wow, what a cool knockout. If it's your friend getting knocked out, you're like, that's not a fighter. That's my friend getting hurt, getting put in this position. Yeah. And when you start to empathize with the actual fighters, that it's not just a fighter, it's your friend versus them. It's a person versus another person.
Yeah.
Like, we all love flash knockout. We all love sub, these sort of things. But I can't watch knockout, in the same way, having been more involved in the community, because you take away from the novelty, the explosiveness of it, to the, oh shit, that's someone's kid. Someone's forgot their kids' names now. That's someone who can't, you know, who could not be able to walk again, think again, live again. You see these scary ones, but you don't know how far down the line it's going to affect them.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a prime example at like a high level.
Yeah.
Was after the fourth or fifth round of Holloway Calvin Kattar.
Yeah.
Dana White is saying, I don't care what he says, take him to an ambulance, take him to the hospital straight away. For Calvin Kattar, the amount of damage he was taking. Yeah. But who's taking that much care of the amateurs who just take punishment and just called tough? Who really cares afterwards? You go to a fight show and see someone in the prelims get a bad knockout. Yeah. You tell me you still remember that by the main card. Tell me you still think about if he got home to his family. You don't think about it. No one does. Because, you know, it's a sport. You forget these things. But I've been there enough times where you see a friend who's come up short and their moment's just been taken away from them. Yeah, and they've got to face everyone who's bought a ticket off of them. I've seen it enough times where the fighters are crying in the changing rooms. I've been that guy many a time. Yeah. It happens. People put their heart in this sport. People don't get that. As far as most people are concerned, they come to support, get a night out of it. And if their mate wins, they go out with them. If they don't, they go out with their mates anyway without him. That's it. They don't care.
I mean, bro, you know... Sorry, Dan. No, sorry to disturb you. It's... You know, bro, that hits... It hits different. Yeah? Especially when you experience that firsthand. Whether you're watching it and you're live and direct sitting there, or you're the person actually on the receiving end of a gruesome knockout or gruesome submission. Um, because the fact of the matter is that, you know, people watching at home or people watching sitting in the seats, and like you said, they expect that shit because, oh, it's MMA, you know. Watch his flying knee to the guy's face, you know, he's going to be lying to the face, going to be lying on the mat, and you know, then we go to the next fight and he's going to be knocking this guy out. You know, that's what goes through a fan's mind if you're like that, because you don't really consider being in the fighter's shoes at a time. Yeah, so you know, when you do a show with, say, a veteran or a battle tested veteran who's been there and done that, and they agree to come on your show, you have no, it just, it's instinctual to really ask, you know, about injuries and things like that. I mean, I had a guy who had 17 fights in the UFC, and now he can't remember anything, literally. Yeah. The guy's just he's completely blank from all them concussions, and to me, bro, that hit me. It hit different to me, because I honestly did not expect that response of what I got from him at the time.
This is what I spoke about earlier today. So I did a live stream and Eric Steer jumped on. And in that, one thing I always highlight is when people jump in on fights last minute, they're not prepared or they didn't take their camp seriously and they get the win. I feel personally disrespected. I find the sports disrespected. I think it's disgusting because what's happened there is you've got away with it.
Yeah.
You haven't won, you've got away with it because you sign on that dotted line when you get to a fight show that if I die, it's not your fault. You're literally signing your life away. Yes, it sounds theatrical. Yes, it sounds excessive. But that is what is on that line. That is what you're expecting. It's what you're accepting, sorry. And like, we went to a fight show at the Battler the other day. Debut fighter, first one of the night. Lands fun in his arm, his elbow dislocates. Pain. You signed up for that.
Wow.
People can take a knockout, they can land funny, and that's their number. That's them done.
But isn't that just up to that fighter to know? You know, it doesn't matter how old you are, you've got to know what your limit is at the end.
Yes and no. This is where I made it very clear that awareness and focus are two different things.
Yeah.
You know, when you get in the car, there's a lot of risks. You know, there's people who could be driving under the influence, people not driving very well, not looking where they're going. You know, if you go too fast, you hit a bend, you can't turn. You're aware of the potential risks and the hazards. But right now, as I'm literally driving now, my eyes are on the road. I'm focused on the car in front of me. I'm focused on the lane. I'm clearing my windshield. I'm aware and focused on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
The awareness of what I sign up for when I get my driving license, when I step in my car, isn't what I'm focusing on whilst I'm in here. If I'm in a fight and all I'm thinking of is shit, I'm going to get knocked out, give it long enough and watch what happens. You get knocked out. I'm not saying if you don't think about it, it won't happen. But I'll tell you what, you're basically setting yourself up for that position. And this is where awareness and focus is very important. You need to know a fight isn't a game. You need to know this isn't football, this isn't a sport where you just show up, give it a go, and say get on and go home.
Yeah.
You need to be prepared that you need to be in a fight. Yes, it's sport, but it's a fight. Someone is throwing with intention to hurt you and knock you out. When you get submitted, you get beaten up to a point where it stops it. People cheer.
Yeah.
It's not a game. It's not a game at all.
No.
And that's why you got to take it seriously. Yeah, you won't always win. Yeah, you will lose every now and then. Yeah, you'll get caught with stuff. Yeah, you'll get hurt. But you got to give yourself the best chance to keep yourself safe and to also do well. And inflict that pain, inflict that sort of, punishment on your opponents. But you know what you sign up for. That's my biggest issue, is people not appreciating what they're signing up for. Like, a debut fight sounds very trivial, but against the wrong opponent, it could be life-changing, career-ending, it could be anything, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, nobody. I mean, say you're right? I mean, you get those guys with who are just stepping in there for the first time, and that there are obviously jitters that are going in there. But I think once the cage door closes, it's more to do with, it's a bit too late to regret this shit now because you already signed on the dotted line. There's no turning back.
Yeah, a
So
lot of people. So with that sentence there, sorry to interrupt, but with that, what you've done there is generalized. Some people, we always say in there is people fight or flight. The cage door's locked. Referee says, "Are you ready?" And you spring into action before anything else has happened. That is most of the time, but not all the time. Some people panic. Some people look for a way out mentally. You'll see them break before they even started. They panic. They think, "Fuck, I don't want this." They think, "Oh, what have I signed up for?" And that's where the awareness kicks in. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, please continue.
I mean, how do you feel about when a guy or when a fighter does retire initially, yeah, and then talks about making a comeback at say 43, 44 years old, and after this and that many years of does what do you think about that? And like say people fighters of that age and what do you think of their mindset and what must be going through their heads coming in?
So it's a big spectrum, and obviously it's individuals for individuals.
Yeah.
You'll see fighters who don't show up on their night and they get upset, they get heartbroken, they think, you know what, this isn't for me. See you later, gloves in the cage, walk off.
Yep.
Good night's sleep, couple of good training sessions. Do you know what? I can have a real good go at this, and they unretire. You see that so many times. You'll see it where someone's just taking punishment after punishment, and they're having to be asked instead of choosing it on their own merits, and it's sad to see it. And you'll see some who just never officially retire, but they just kind of accept they've not had a fight for a while. They do other things in their life. Their focus drifts. Yep. So it's hard to really gauge it. Where you need to really see is, are you in a position where you're deteriorating? Where is your trajectory? Are you improving? Are you declining? Because if you're where you're at and you're getting worse, your timing's getting worse, your skill set's getting worse, not even just stagnating, like you're just that bit further off beat consistently. Is it safe for you to be in there? I'll give you a prime example. Vaughan Lee, the UFC vet, he trains with us a lot more regularly now. He comes to the pro sparring, and he's retired since his last fight in cage was against Jack Shaw, who's now in the UFC himself. And progressively, I mean, our coach, Danny Batten, said this, that he's still sharp. He's if not sharper, and he keeps getting sharper. He's training with Sam Priest, the active flyweight champion of Cage Warriors. He's sparring with like Jake Hadley, UFC newest fighter. All these things. Like someone like Vaughan, who's experienced, who's been in there for however many fights he's had now, he's still sharp. He's getting sharper. He's improving. James Smith PT quote, which I love beyond all belief, is it's more important where you're going than where you are. Because say if you're at the top of the mountain, you think you're the man. But the only way now is down. Whereas if you're at the bottom of the mountain, you think, God, I'm so low down where we're at now. Like where we are with our podcast, we're still in the infancy, let's be honest. Like the trajectory is going upwards. I'd rather be there than at the top and the way down. You know what I mean? So you can actually grow, you can develop, you can expand and enjoy. But you're not on the decline where everything you have is slipping through your fingers. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, when we were talking, from all we've said right now, Dan, over the past hour that we've been on it, is after all we've said and after what we stand for and what we've talked about, one real thing that you caught me with was, when you talk to those guys that are entitled, you kind of get a different sense of opinion, if you will. And one big thing as a fighter's career moves on, not necessarily as they retire, but as they move on, is money and actually making a living out. So when you speak to someone like that who cares about more about making a living than about competing itself, what do you think about that? And
I think if you're in MMA for money, you're in the wrong job. I think you need to appreciate, if you're going to be in the sport, you're going to be broke. You're going to be broke for a while. But I tell you what, that fulfillment is where the real value comes from. So Bob Marley is one of the prime reference points when it comes to these conversations. Of someone asked him, "Are you a rich man?"
Yeah, I've heard that.
What would you mean by rich? Did it mean I have a lot of possessions? So that doesn't make you rich. I'm happy, or something like to that extent.
Your possessions make you happy.
This is the old quote as well from I can't remember who it was. That they go to this billionaire's party. He's got all these models. He's got all the cars. And it says, "I've got one thing he'll never have, and what's that? It's enough." That idea that what I'm doing, it fulfills me. I don't need to keep chasing.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's got their own way of driving themselves, getting them out of bed and so on, and everything else. I think people who are entitled and doing it for the wrong reasons, I don't think they are wrong. I don't think they're nasty. I don't think they're spiteful. I think they're misled. I think what happens with a lot of those kind of people is they expect, once they've got to that point, they'll have this light bulb moment of, oh, that's what it was all for. It was all worth it. It was everything I wanted it to be. You see what I mean? When in actual fact, they've just been on an empty thing. They think, okay, I get to this point where my house is worth this much. I've got this much in my bank. Everyone's wearing designer clothes, but they'll miss out on that hollow feeling inside. But ultimately, they won't last, because this kind of sport, it will have you in so many pieces. It will have you physically broken, mentally broken, emotionally broken, all these things over and over again. And it's such a long process to be gratifying. Like, if it was like, okay, I trained today, I felt good, and then I'm getting better, that is one day, happy days. Is every day going to be like that? No. You're going to have days when you're hungry, when you're injured, when you're tired, you're stressed, you've got these things on. And do you want to train, or do you want to take the day off? Then you feel guilty, you took the day off, and then it affects everything else, and you push through this point and you get injured, you do this. So much is going on, and then it takes a couple bad spars and you're crying in your car on the way back. You think, what am I even doing this for? It happens so many times, and those people get sieved out for that reason. And it's not having this constant Americanism of a motivation and a drive to keep going forward and all this kind of stuff. It's just, okay, breathe and reset. It's not, oh, I need this to honor my memory of my father, or some cliche you've seen in all the films. It's like, okay, fucking hell, I hate this. I want to cry. I want to throw this away, have McDonald's, and just, call it a day. No. Okay. If I have my junk food, if I have my cry, I have a couple of days off, I come back. It's that bit, the coming back bit. We spoke about this at the start, the maintenance. Like, oh, I forgot to water my plant today. Oh, never mind, I'll never water again. So, well, if I water it now and tomorrow and the day after and the day after, I rebuild this habit, it's still got a chance. If I just ignore it and leave it, it's definitely gone. Some of all this stuff. But you nurture it, you let it grow, you let it build, you adjust, you adapt. You don't just give up straight away as soon as it gets a bit hard. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, no, for real, man. And I guess, bro, you look at that two ways. Is consistency. Yeah, I mean, you have to remember. You have to remember where you started from. Yeah, and to where you are now, and how the hell you got to that stage. And the fact that if your head does go so far up your ass, yeah, that you forgot all those things, then there's no real point. Yeah, take it out, like you said, take a deep breath, and think and take a few steps back and think about where you were. I think when somebody does go back to their roots and really does go find out where they came from and how they started and what hard work actually is, despite the tens and twenties that they receive at the end. I think that is more gratifying than anything. So I think it takes someone with real balls to do that and to go back to their roots.
I appreciate it a lot. This is something that is my constant referral back to, is at what point does 8 weeks of training equate to a 9-minute fight? No. It makes no sense. No. It makes no sense. You'll never appreciate from the fight itself that win meant everything. I tell you what, the last fight when I won, by the time my hand was raised, I was already over it. It was like, oh, is that it? You just kind of shrug. You think, okay, so I went through all this, all the depression, all the bits and bobs, the heartbreak of this, getting knocked out then, coming back after for that. Was that it? Was all this for that? And you think, do you know what? It's bigger than this. And this is where a lot of these conversations come from, is appreciating the underwhelming wins and the heartbreaking losses and that bit in between of the preparation and the worrying about things. And you just kind of get context on things. And the recurring cliche in these sports is the tougher your day-to-day gets, the easier life gets, because your norm is like, I used to say this all the time. I used to work in an office. People used to say they get stressed. I look them in the eyes and I think to myself, you haven't had a professional fighter top turtle on you, ground and pounding your face in. You're stressed because you're getting told off about something. Yes, bills and the rest of it. You're not getting punched in your face, getting called a pussy for not standing up fast enough and losing the round. You look me in the eyes and tell me you're stressed. That's really fucking stressed. Someone's trying to choke you, someone's trying to punch you, someone's cutting you, all this sort of stuff. That's stress.
Yeah.
What you're going through is frustration. Obviously, it's relative. Obviously, it's all everything else. It relates to this. That's my point. Actual not under the knife, but you're under the fire and the heat in the kitchen. You need to be able to deal with that. And the better you get with dealing with that pressure, that physical pressure, that mental taxing, the draining, the all this sort of thing, it gives us so much more context to what actual, as we know it, stress is. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you know what that actually reminds me of? I was watching Wolf of Wall Street, yeah, and the whole joint was the quote that really got me. What you just said is that we don't create shit, yeah, we don't build anything, yeah, and it's all about, and basically the whole point was just putting the time into what you do, yeah, and you're basically just fucking just sticking to that, yeah, and that's what you said. It's like I don't know how to really, I can't put my finger on it, and it's something that you can't put your finger on, yeah, because there's that certain it factor, there's a certain shit that goes through your head about this, yeah, like you said, and like we said before, it's not ballet, yeah. You're not putting no onesie or footsies on, yeah, and tapping around. It's real shit. And what we were saying earlier, Dan, about fans wanting to see this guy and that guy get knocked out, and it's that guy's friends and family, or that woman's friends and family are watching it. And, one thing we never really touched on is that people, we've seen fighters actually die from it. Yeah, I mean, there was a one guy in a newspaper I was reading about, yeah, and he was in a bare knuckle fight, and he got knocked out flat on his face, and it went viral, yeah, and and that page was so hyped up about the knockout itself. They didn't acknowledge that he died. Yeah, bro.
This is my point. They share the knockout happily, but you'll see the boxing one. I can't remember which promotion it was or who the fighter is. But it goes from the knockout and the weigh-ins where he's all a bit happy and a bit cheeky to him in a wheelchair, unable to speak.
Oh yeah,
that's reality.
Yeah,
exactly. That's reality of it. Anyway, my friend, I've just got back, gonna grab some dinner and get some sleep. But thank you so much for having me on.
Dan, you are the man, bro. Yeah, and hopefully I would love to reciprocate the favor and join you, man, one time.
Thank you, my friend. Take care of yourself. Thank you for all the listeners as well for joining in. Fisticuffs podcast on all streaming platforms, social media as well. Yeah, stay tuned. Take care, my friend. All the best.